What's going on, y'all? This is Sam Thory. I'm just doing part 4 of our series on creating a SaaS marketing site using Cursor, and we're using Next.js, Tailwind, Vercel, Supabase, TRPC, ShadCN, multiple animation libraries. We're using all kinds of stuff. Also Sanity, probably. We haven't gotten to that yet. But in our last video, we did the initial setup of Supabase with TRPC using Drizzle ORM, and things got a little out of hand, I would say, mostly because what we got back from Cursor just wasn't very helpful, and we ended up having to go to an older project and just kind of scaffold it together from what we already had set up in an older project. So wasn't the best. We got past the road bumps, but really we'll go into another video at some point where we do a deep dive on that and take it down step by step. For now, we'll move on. And I think it was a little bit early in the game also to set that up. I know it is an initial setup, but there really isn't anything that we're going to be doing with Supabase until we get to contact form, any kind of form submissions really. At this point, we're just getting started in setting up our homepage. We're just pulling in, or we're just using static data, static content for now. So we're not even using Sanity. So if you remember on part 2, if you watched that one, we went through the initial setup of the entire project, and we started working on the homepage, and we created just the hero for our homepage. So if we go in, we'll go ahead and start up our server here. We're using PNPM, so I ran PNPM run dev, and I have another one running, so it's on localhost 3001. We'll open this up over here. I'll pull this in, and you can see we have this as our hero. It's not the greatest. This is full page here, full size, full height hero, which is fine, but I don't think it needs to be. I don't know if I love the white background, and this text is not readable at all. We do have an effect in the background here, these background beams coming in from Asseternity that we set up. That's a animation UI library. And then we have some kind of hover effect on these, which we're definitely not going to keep. So what we can do here is maybe work on this list. Also, I would say this is much too wide. We need bigger gutters on the left and the right, so we'll add a little bit more margin there. What we're going to try to do for the most part is do everything through Cursor instead of touching code. Obviously, there's going to be points where we can just go in and fix the code ourselves, and we can do that as well. But for the most part, fixing this list and updating our background color to maybe be something a little bit darker, that can be handled by Cursor. So let's just take it step by step. We'll start with the background. We'll go back over to Cursor. I'm going to use Composer instead of Chat. We typically do that. And we definitely want to start out with a fresh Composer here, where it's pulling in page.tsx automatically because that's what I have selected. That's fine. We'll keep that. And what we're going to say is, please take a look at hero. We're going to make some styling changes, and we want to make this smaller steps than what we did last time. A big part of the issue that we had last time was that we tried to do way too much way too quickly, all in one go, and it got very confused and off the rails. So we're not going to do that again. This time what we're going to do is just say, let's make the background color for the hero darker using one of my colors from @globals.css. So that's going to take a look at this file here, where in our first or second video we set up all these different colors that should go with a company like Streamline IQ, this fictional SaaS company. So we have all of these colors already created, and we want Cursor to figure out what's a darker color that we could use for the background color from this list. Colors can get a little weird sometimes with Cursor. Sometimes it's fine, sometimes it's not. It oftentimes will put text that is not accessible on a background. So you definitely have to be careful about that and do some accessibility audits yourself. But let's start with this here and see what we get. Very simple. What we should see is changes just to the hero. So let's find that components hero. And it does look like the only file it's changing is the hero.tsx. That's good. We have this value. Let's see where it's pulling that from. So instead of using one of the colors from our globals.css, which I asked it to, excuse me, it has just pulled some random color. So we don't want that. I want to go back here, use one of the colors from @globals.css for the background. And I believe that was on the background. And it looks like it's also made some changes elsewhere to colors. So let's see what it's got now. BG card. And let's just make sure that is on @globals. There it is. That's a white. So no, that's still incorrect. Let's see how it looks just to make sure. It's even worse. So please analyze the comments next to each color in @globals.css to find a dark color and check the HSL values that are being created. We'll see how it does there. So it's saying the card is charcoal. We know it's not. BG card be text foreground. So at least got the text right now, but the background, and actually that text won't be right when we have a dark background. So it's struggling here. We're gonna go ahead and accept all even though it's incorrect, and we can just automatically, or we can just pull a color ourselves. So we have this deep blue as our primary. Let's try that. And we're just gonna change this here. And what we can do is use the text primary foreground, which we know is I think like a white. That's fair. So that's terrible. I don't like that color blue. It's really not a deep blue, or it's not a dark blue at least. Let's see the accent. Oof. I decided now that I don't want this to be just a solid color, so we're gonna do a linear background. So we'll let it fill it out. Oh, that's not right. I think it is to, there we go. BG gradient to bottom right. We'll say BR in there. From primary to secondary. Still don't love that. Let's do, so we can do from primary via accent to secondary. That's a little much, so I'm gonna say to accent. So that's something. It's not great. I don't love it, but we can move on from it at least. I don't want to spend too much time on it right now. We can always come back when we have some better defined colors. I think what I'd like to see is multiple versions of primary where we'd have like primary light, primary dark. Not sure I want to go through setting all of that up right now. So we'll just keep it simple with the colors that we have. So given that, we're gonna go ahead and go to Composer. We're good there. Now we're gonna move on to our next little piece. And before we get going on that, just remembered something that I thought might be an issue, part of the issue that we had last time. Going through this cursor rules, I'm not sure that this is perfect for what we want. We keep getting an SRC folder, which we definitely do not want, and I'm wondering if there's something about that in here. I'm not seeing it. But overall, I would say that this has not been the most effective cursor rules so far for us. We've had some luck and we've had some issues. So what we're gonna do is go back to one of the first things that we looked at. It's called cursor.directory, and it's just a website where we have multiple versions of cursor rules that can be specific for what we're building. So we can look for something that maybe is like JS specific. Maybe I already passed that. Right here, React, Next, JavaScript, TypeScript, HTML, CSS, Tailwind, Shad, and Radix we need. This looks good. Leave no to-dos, placeholders, or missing pieces. This is always a good reminder because it'll just give you pseudocode sometimes. So this is okay, but it's not really saying anything about Supabase. Like this one is saying Supabase, Zod, Turbo. It's also talking about Expo, which you're not doing anything React Native. It does have React Query in here, so there's some good ones and there's some bad ones. It might be too much. Let's look at this one here. Next, Abra, React Shad, Radix. That's very specific. Again, nothing about Supabase. Let's see. Nothing. That's the one that we have in place right now. Whoops. Again, nothing on Supabase. Nothing on Supabase there. Supabase, TypeScript, Tailwind. It's a little bit lighter, this one here. It doesn't have as much, doesn't talk about ShadCN or anything like that. Might be okay. I do like that it mentions Supabase and talks a little bit about that. We can add in the rest. I don't know, there's some trade-offs between these. At some point, you might need to ask, is it best just to create your own or modify one of these? Here we go. So it talks about, we're not going to use GraphQL, that's okay. Otherwise, this one actually looks pretty good. So we'll take this, and that just goes through all of them there. Come back over here and just swap this out. Boom. So now we have a new set of rules, and that's good. Now we can move on to doing our next step in fixing this hero up. So just looking at the hero, you have a different background now. The title is fully readable, but the next little section is not fully readable. So I'm going to update this to primary foreground as well. There's no differentiation between the two now, unfortunately, between this line. So we might make this a little bit lighter. We can do something like /80, give it a little bit of transparency, and that might just be enough for now. So now we're going to move on to this section here where we have these 5 little text statements where we want to display this differently. So we have this list, and I think we want to turn this into maybe a carousel. And I think if we go to Magic UI.design, browse the components here, the marquee would be something that we could use. It's perfect. So we're going to copy this URL and let's open up a new one. In the hero, we have a list. I want to display this list using marquee from @magic.ui. And probably that'd be enough, but I'm just going to give it the URL to this component is that. And even before we run this, because I know it's going to install it or try to install it for us, let's go ahead and just install this ourselves. So we have the CLI option or the manual option. We'll do CLI every time. So we just copy this for PNPM, come back over here, boom, and I'll move this out so I can read. And this just says PNPM DLX ShadCN at latest add the marquee. So this is going to create a new folder for us called Magic UI. Oh, no, I'm sorry, that changed. Well, that's been updated since the last time I used this, weirdly. So now everything's going straight into UI. So if I go over here, definitely want to open this so Cursor has a better knowledge of it. When it creates a brand new file, until you open it, it's not going to index it unless you went into the settings and did a resync index. So we can just take a look at this. Again, this is more for Cursor's knowledge. We don't need to get into the nitty-gritty for now. So it has the information. Let's give it some parameters. Let's make a variation on this that fits the style of the hero so far. And each item should have a unique and sensible icon displayed with it. And everything should be readable on the background. So use lighter colors. And let's see if it handles these colors a little bit better, but it's been struggling. Colors, that's not something that's fully understandable by LLMs, I guess. Should be. And especially these values they should be machine readable. But for now, we're still the test subjects. Things don't always work perfectly. I'm not sure that I wanted it to adjust this file specifically, and I might have it back down now. Let's see. All right, so I'm going to reject that. And what we want to do is make these changes on the hero without adjusting marquee. So we want to keep that intact for future uses. If we end up using the marquee somewhere else, it should be completely composable outside of the marquee itself. We should be able to just keep that completely untouched. If we need to add some other props, we can definitely do that. We don't have to change these props or change anything being passed in. Cursor obviously didn't understand that because we didn't give it the correct parameters. So we'll come back over here and see how it's working. It has this here, hero icons react 24 outline. I'm gonna use react icons. Oops. I want to use icons from react icons instead. And hopefully that'll just make this adjustment here instead of using this strange package I've never heard of, which may be just fine. I don't know anything about it. I'm not sure why it pulled it in either. So that's a little strange, but you know, it is what it is. So we'll see how it's working here. It's awfully slow for a pretty basic question prompt. It did the work. I'm going to need to install React icons. So that's simple enough. I can go in pm add React icons. That should take care of the import errors. It did. And so we should be able to go over and see what kind of results we're dealing with here. Hopefully it's not a mess, right? That's something. But we don't need this to be 2 columns. We just want 1 column. And obviously we got something going on here with the width of it. Oh my goodness. Let's address one thing at a time. We only want 1 column. This is something we could do. Oops. So we just have 2 columns here. So let's go ahead and accept all. So we have our baseline. We're not going to lose anything if we make a change inadvertently. And one decision we need to make is which way do we want to go? I think to the left. So let's keep the first one, take this one out. That should leave us just with the one where we have this strange indexing that has taken place. That could be handled a lot better, but for simplicity's sake, let's leave as is. So we now have 1. We need to make these bigger. It's hard to read. And we also have our overflow issue. But let's start with making the text bigger. Make the text bigger on these marquee items. Should be a quick fix for it, hopefully. It's going to come in here, just update that, and then we're going to come back over, fix the overflow that we have going on here once this is fixed. We want to kind of take care of some of the small details and then get to the big detail here. It's looking better. I think I can deal with that for now. We may update that, but let's fix the overflow. We now have an issue where the content is not contained within the screen. Please fix this and give the content, other than the marquee, more padding left and right. So that's not very specific. But what we'll do is where exactly it made the change and just update that. It's easier than having to hunt and peck through this. And maybe it'll get it right the first time. We'll see. Probably not. Let's see. We're at max width 7XL. That's going to be our content size. And I actually like that. But I want this to go all the way off the screen on each side. I don't want any margin or padding on the marquee itself. Let's go ahead and accept all. Let's go down to our marquee and let's take a look. So this has a PY because this has an overall, isn't it? No? Is this within it? Yes. Div X with 7XL. So I want this to be down here. And that now is just the header information. And voila. We have the full width there. And let's just open up the inspector. Oops. I'm going to right click there. We're going to open up the inspector and make sure that we don't have any kind of weird pull off the screen. We don't. Looks good. Great. All right. I can deal with that. We have our icons coming in. Automate repetitive tasks and processes. That's a kind of AI thing. Generate actionable insights. Rocket ship, sure. Improve decision making through predictive analytics. Check shield. Ants across teams. This is great, and we have a little team. We're doing really well. We can go ahead and just save this here, I think, and we've fully fixed up our hero. And I think it's probably a good place to stop for this video. But before we do, let's go ahead and push this up. So we're going to hit into our terminal here, and we're going to say create new branch, finish, hero, add all changes, commit, and push. Boom. All right, we're all pushed up there. We have everything ready to go. And just as a recap, one big thing that we did is we changed our cursor rules, so hopefully we won't have any issues in the future with using stuff like Supabase and Drizzle ORM and all of that stuff that we had issues with. And actually what I want to do here is, while we're in here, let's just go ahead and take out GraphQL. So we're not going to use that. We're not going to use GenQL, which just generates your types, I think, from your GraphQL. I think I used that in Gatsby. Tailwind, Radix, Shad. I'll say Magic UI, Asseternity UI, and ShadCN, Supabase, Drizzle, ORM, React Query, Zod for schema resolving, validation. It's quite a bit. Might need more, but I think that's good. And we can add that next time, no big deal. So we've already pushed that up. Let's take a look actually before we go over to GitHub. We'll create this pull request just so we have a full deal going on here. So we go into Streamline IQ. It's very small for y'all, so I'll make this bigger. First we can do this one here since we didn't actually pull this all the way in. And we see that we have a deployment failure here. So this is some simple ESLint stuff that we're definitely going to come back next time and take care of. We're going to have the same issues with the other pull requests as well. So we can come back to that, no big deal. And we'll get this fully deployed and everything. So we fixed those cursor rules issues, and then we took some time to go through the hero. One thing that we added was some padding, some margins. We changed the background color so we have this nice effect. The linear gradient effect. Oops, that's the wrong one. Apologize. Here we go. We changed our text so that's readable, and then we changed our list, which was very ugly at the beginning, to be this scrolling marquee list. We could probably do some more work here. Absolutely could do some more work here. That is hideous. I didn't see that. And also, this looks oddly not centered, so we're not quite done with the hero yet. That's definitely not centered. Actually, we could fix that really quickly. Let's do MX Auto for the win. There we go. That's fixed real quick. Probably come back to the buttons later. We can move on to the rest of the homepage, which we initially created this guy right here, home.md, which is our content document. And we've already created our hero section. We have this right here, the transform your operations already in there. We'll create this little who we serve section and a why choose us section, and then that's it. This will basically be CTA section at the bottom. So that'll be the extent of the homepage. Obviously, we don't have a footer, we don't have a nav bar yet, so we need to create those still. But we can crank through that pretty quickly. We spent a lot of time on this hero because we were doing some initial setup stuff. We haven't made much UI progress yet, but from here, we can really start to move quickly. So keep on following through, subscribe. I don't know about all that stuff, just getting started, but please support trying to get this going and get better at it. So I know it's not always perfect, but I'm working on it. So thank you very much and have a good day.